if you would open to page 9 of your packet, the factor by grouping for more terms. If you look at number 1, we're going to be starting there, so I'd like you to take notes in your packet. All right, so if you look at the first example, we've got 4 terms there. And if we're going to factor by grouping, similar to what we did in the previous section, except that we're just not doing rainbow. So when we have 4 terms, just like what we did in the previous section, we're going to group the first 2, and we're going to group the second 2, and we're going to pull out a GCF from each section. So in this first section here, I see that I've got a 5, and I see also that I have, oops, that does not look good, that's a 2, 5x squared. Okay, so if I take that out, I get 2x plus 3. And then in the second grouping, I see that I have a common factor of 4. So I'm going to take out a 4, and that will give me 2x plus 3. All right, so remember, it's great when these both match up. That's what we want. So the GCFs that I took out go together in one set of parentheses, so 5x squared plus 4. And then in the other, we'll go 2x plus 3. And there's your answer. Okay, so if we look at number 6, it's a little bit different than number 1 because number 1 had 4 terms and this expression has 6. Now, if I am going to just group in groups of 2, so let's just look at it from this perspective. So here, let's say I group these two, like what I have been doing, and these 2. Okay, so let's just try this. So if I group in groups of 2, I can see my first group of 2 has a common factor of k squared. So when I take that k squared out, I end up with k squared minus 4. All right, let's look at the middle grouping here of 2. So I see here that I have a common factor of 8 and a common factor of k. So let's take out the 8k, and when I divide that into each of these middle terms, I'll get k squared minus 4. So you can kind of see at this point that when I'm looking at this, do you see that this term here and this term here, those 2 binomials, are the same? So I know that I'm kind of on the right track here. All right, so then let's go into the third grouping. So there I see that I have a common factor of 12. So when I divide that out, I'm going to get k squared minus 4. Okay, so just to kind of go over this again. So when I see all 3 sets of these parentheses are the same exact thing, then I know that I'm doing pretty good. All right, so let's go back, and all my GCFs, I'm going to take those and I'm going to put them together in one set of parentheses, and then my common binomial is going to go in the other set of parentheses. All right, so I did a great job here, but I'm not done yet, because what I need to realize is I have something that's a trinomial here, and I know I have to look for something that adds to 8 and multiplies to 12. So, oops, let me put my pen back on there. There we go. Okay, so I know that I'm going to open up 2 sets of parentheses, and I know that 6 and 2 multiply to 12, but I need to get a positive 8 when I add them, so that will be a positive 6 and a positive 2, and those also multiply to a positive 12. Now the other thing I need to look at is the second set of parentheses here, and I look at that and I say, oh, well, wait a minute, that's dots. So k plus 2 and k minus 2. Now I can leave my answer like this, But I do notice that I have the same factor written twice. So another option for you is to say k plus 6. And this can go in any order. It really doesn't matter which set of parentheses goes first. But that k plus 2 is written twice, so I'm going to square that factor. And then k minus 2. Okay? So there's your final answer. All right, if you would turn the page, look at page 10, number 7, and again, take notes in your packet. Okay, now, so this one, like number 6, is also 6 terms. So in the last one, number 6, I grouped in 2s. So I want to show you something. Do me a favor, actually. Don't write this, but I want to show you. So if I group in 2s, like I did in the last one, I want to just show you. So my first grouping of 2, I would say, oh, okay, well, they have an m squared. So let me take that out, and I get m plus 5. Good, right? Okay, but now let's look at that middle grouping. And I would say, well, they have an m in common, so let me take that out, and that would leave me with 6 plus m. Well, I have a problem, because this binomial here and this binomial here are not the same. And if I'm doing factor by grouping, they should be, right? Okay, so that's why I told you not to write this down. So in this case, grouping in groups of 2 is not going to work. Okay, so we can consider this not an option. All right, so let's look at the next option that we do have. So let's start over again then. Now you can take notes. So grouping in groups of 2s didn't work. Well, we have 6 terms. What if we grouped in 3s? Okay, so let's start with that and let's see what happens. So if I look at my first 3, I notice that there's a factor of m that I can take out. And that will leave me with m squared plus 5m plus 6. Okay, all right, now let's look at the second group. Well, there's no common factor, so I'm going to take out a 1 then. So remember, if there's nothing in common, we can always factor out a 1. And look at what happens. It is like math magic. Look at that. Okay, so notice this parentheses here matches up with that parentheses there. Yay! So then what we can do is take the things that we factored out and put that in one set of parentheses, and then in the other we're going to put our common parentheses there. Okay, so now we know we're on the right path. So sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error, but when you have 6 terms, you may have to try groups of 2s, and if that doesn't work, then do groups of 3s. All right, but we are not done yet, because this parentheses right here can factor a little bit more. So let's keep going with that. All right, so I'm going to bring down the m plus 1. Now, I know with the second parentheses, the trinomial here, I'm going to look for what adds to 5 and multiplies to 6. So I'm going to open up 2 sets of parentheses. I'm going to put m in the beginning of each of those, and I'm going to go with 3 and 2, and both of them positive. Okay, so there we go. There's our answer. Make sure you got that written down.